Jack Guiney is our man of the match. He's with Damien O'Mara.
Jack, congratulations. The body language, I think, of the players says a lot. Is the emotion one of relief as much as euphoria to have got over the line?
I think relief. We made very, very hard work of it. We knew we were good enough to put it up to Clare, and we knew if we got in position, if we took our chances, that we could beat them. And the first day we didn't beat them, or didn't take our chances, and for a long time there today we didn't take our chances either. But thankfully in the end there, an extra time, they started going over.
Some people walking off the pitch talking about this possibly being a breakthrough week for hurling in the county, considering the win you were involved in early in the week as well.
Yeah, it's a big boost. Like winning Leinster under 21 back to back, it's a big boost, and then beating the All-Ireland champions at home, it's a massive boost. But it's up to us now to keep our heads on the ground now and not get carried away. We've won nothing yet with the seniors, so we want a bit of silverware, and hopefully now we can get our heads down again.
It all rolls on with Waterford next weekend. Congratulations, Jack. You are the Etihad RTE man of the match, and with your presentation from Etihad, Shannon O'Dowd.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
A well game. He's talking now to Damien O'Mara.
Michael Lester, Liam, telling me that you'll enjoy watching the highlights of this back. Might not be as tense on a second viewing.
No, look at it. I mean, we'll take the victory today. You know, on the line it's difficult sometimes to really get into it too much. You can't do it really. It's different when you're playing. But look at it was a great game again. You know, to go to extra time, who would have ever believed it? But you know, it's fabulous for the people of Wexford. You know, but unfortunately, it's the first round of the qualifiers, and we have another game next week. But look, it's great to be still in the championship.
And when the dust settles and you watch the DVD back tomorrow or Monday or whenever, is it a game you think you made more difficult for yourself, or maybe two games you made a bit harder for yourself than they should have been?
Well, I think Clare proved why they're All-Ireland champions. You know, we put them to the pin of their collar last week, 10 points up, and in fairness to them, they came back and they're great champions. And you know, we look back to last year, and you know the way Clare led the way, to be honest with you, and you know, I have to give our fellas great credit as well, to be fair to them.
Well, the white count in particular, there's always areas to improve upon, but is that an area that would cause you concern?
Well, it won't cause me concern. We're creating the chances. It's something we can improve on. You know, we created a lot of chances last week, we didn't take them. The same this week as well. But look, we're a team in progress. You know, step by step, inch by inch, we're doing our best down here in Wexford to try and get back at the top. And you're a team with great momentum behind you. To use that word that gets rolled out so often, you won't have any fear about next weekend or another game on the trot? No, it might be very difficult for some of the under-21s, all right, in fairness to them, you know, Conor MacDonald and Jack Guiney and Liam Ryan, you know. But look, if you have a Leinster under-21 medal in your back pocket Wednesday night, your head is able to tell you it'll keep the body going. But look, it's fantastic for the people of Wexford, and it gives everyone a lift, you know. And you look at the likes of Jim Bulger here today, and you know, Billy Welsh, you know, fabulous Wexford man. So it's great for everybody.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Jim Bulger.
Fair play to Wexford the way they played, and best to look to them from here on in. But I'll tell you one thing, we will regroup and we will come back again. We're fighters, and I'm so proud of them guys. With all the adversity that was put their way this year in certain ways, they showed unreal what they were made of. Fair play to them.
Clare proved why they're All-Ireland champions, you know.
As All-Ireland champions, but what a great night for Wexford.
Yeah, great night for Wexford. They've had a couple of tough years where they've taken some tough blows to the chin, but all credit to Liam Dunn and all credit to the Wexford players. They, you know, a lot of people would have felt that maybe they lost their chance in Cusack Park. A lot of people might have felt that they lost their chance in normal time yesterday. With having Clare down to 13 men, but you know, it was a fantastic performance by them, an epic game, and Clare deserve credit for that as well.
Yeah, those Wexford young fellas are coming on, Eddie, aren't they?
They are, and you'd have to say, look, we know the crew in '96 are heavily involved with this bunch of players, and Liam Griffin is involved there with the forwards. And the one thing you like about them is they're playing attack in hurling. You know, they seem to play with a full forward withdrawn on his own, and the two corner forwards come deep. But what they have is in Liam McGovern, they're taking on their attackers. They're looking to attack all the time up front. They're playing with intensity. They're throwing the ball around, you know, and they're trying to find the option. To be fair to them, they're playing positive hurling. They've invested in the youth, which is a big thing. You know, you look at the forwards they've brought on. You know, O'Keefe, Conor MacDonald, Jack Guiney, Liam McGovern. You know, they're all good fellas, loads of speed, and they're not afraid to have a shot either. You'd have to say, look, again last night, they probably could have, you know, beaten Clare a bit more comfortably than they did. But they're going forward, they're not getting hung up on that. And all in all, you'd have to say there, in addition, it's brilliant to see this back. It's brilliant for Wexford. You see what it meant to them there afterwards. And the confidence with a young team like that, they're growing. They have a 21 Leinster title behind them. So all in all, it's brilliant for them going forward. I mean, they shadow boxed with the All-Ireland champions for the last 2 years, and you'd say they finally, delivered the knockout blow last night. But as we said earlier on, Clare have to take great credit for the way they fought with 30 men. But it's all about Wexford, I'm afraid. Last night was brilliant.
So there was frustration for Clare supporters, and some of the decisions went against them. We're going to look at the red cards, but it's interesting that when the lads were looking at these, you said there's a case could be made for the black card to be introduced to hurling, which...
Yeah, I suppose, look, Des, we've been talking about this for...
Some of the diehards mightn't like to hear that.
For the last while, but I suppose it just came up in conversation in that hurling's a really physical game, and we saw in a number of instances Wexford were really physical in the forward line, but throughout the game, having looked at it, we would have had to say that Clare maybe weren't getting away with a lot of things they got away with last year. I'm not saying, or maybe referees were harsher on them, and they were less inclined to give them frees.
And you look at there, Liam McGovern is doing a lot of hanging out of Brendan Bugler, and that's a learning curve in itself. I mean, when you're the underdog, you tend to get away with maybe a little bit of stuff like that. And Brendan Bugler knows himself. Look, a bit of frustration. He's been mauled asunder there, and it's hard when that happens. It can be frustrating.
And let's face it, Eddie, like, the referees are only human as well, and I've seen it during my own career. Referees tend to go with the underdog, and definitely Clare would, in the games Clare are played this year, there is a tendency not to give them the breaks that maybe they were getting last year.
That was a red card.
Yeah, you'd have to say, you'd love to say different. I mean, he doesn't strike with huge force, but it's more frustration than anything else. But here we have, Jack Brown, who was, you'd have to say, heavily involved. Look, takes 2 big hits there, and look, doesn't give up on it, wins the ball back and comes out with it. And that was the match itself. It was played with great intensity, and you'd say, look, the issue with the colour of the card is, look, Jack Brown, that's his second one there, and we've seen Johnny Ryan, composed himself, and you could almost see the thought bubble coming on in his head. He knew the consequences of that. Barry Kelly got involved there when it looked like Johnny wasn't going to give him the second, and that's the kind of the officiating you want to see, because if the ref misses something, then help him out. But look, I think there is a grievance in Clare. They'll feel that they didn't get the rub of the green when it comes to refereeing, and we saw in the very first clip, Conor Ryan was fouled twice, and one of them was a fairly hefty tackle. You'd say maybe it possibly merited a card, but the problem is when we bring in the argument in relation to the colour of the card is that, look, if you had a black card when Clare were in that position, does it, take the pressure off the ref just a little bit and say, look,
the sub couldn't come on?
Yeah, because as I said, Johnny Ryan, you could quite clearly see by his body language, he knew the consequences of what was on the table for him there, and it was a decision that he was kind of backing away from just a fraction. And you just say that maybe a black card there, whereas 13 men was going to be a huge ask for Clare after that.
Where the problem with it is, in addition to what Eddie is saying, it's the first yellow card, Des, that referees are issuing a yellow card for what's borderline. Jack Brown, who was outstanding yesterday, he showed a fantastic clip of defending from him, but the first yellow card was debatable. And then what happened was, when the second came around, it was a yellow. The problem is that the 2 yellow cards we're seeing in a lot of situations doesn't merit a team going down to 14 men. So within the broader spectrum of things, it's definitely worth looking at the black card. Now, hurling will have the benefit of being able to watch our football counterparts for 12 months.
Because of the incident last year, but the Henry Shefflin, it comes back into play, to punish the team for an innocuous first yellow, and then, the second one obviously then has, it's going to have a bigger impact. So,
okay, well, the debate is out there now.
Yeah, definitely.
So you'd both see a merit in it.
Well, there's merit in looking at it, definitely. It'll have to be teased out.
Okay.
We thought it would raise its head on light with the penalty thing going backwards, that had to be pulled down.
Okay, well, let's move on to another source of great debate, and that was a couple of square ball decisions.
Yeah, the first one, I think it's Conor McDonald gets a great touch to this, but we can see here he's just on the line when he strikes it, and that's a beautiful piece of skill. You don't often see that lads connecting the ball, it reaches up. You can see there he's just on the small square, which looks perfectly legitimate goal. Again, the full back, you'd have to say, maybe should be attacking that ball a bit more.
It's probably a bit ironic. Here we see Conor McDonald's goal. The first one wasn't given and should have been given, but this one was given, and you can see clearly that he was inside in the square before the ball. you would question here, what are the umpires doing? We saw in the previous incident that Eddie spoke about, Barry Kelly, which you'd have to commend. Like you've 6 officials supporting the referee, 4 umpires, 2 linesmen. That's 7 people on the field. People talk about the need for 2 referees. If all of those officials were on the ball enough, there wouldn't be any need for talk about the 2 referees. So you'd support Barry Kelly, but you'd like to think that the umpires would be more on the ball in those situations.
Okay, talk to me about the formation changes that occurred in this game.
Yeah, like there was a lot of talk the last day that Clare didn't start with their famous sweeper, if you like, but the last day in Wexford Park, they did, and Shane Morey was in that position. Now, he played it really well during the game. The only thing for him is that because of the Clare sending offs, he played for 2/3 of the game, they couldn't implement it. Wexford almost mimicked him. Keith Rossiter played in that role for Wexford, and again, he's the ideal man for that. He's composed, he's an intelligent player. Here we see at the start of the second half, because Clare had lost their men, look at the huge spaces that are there when they can't play the sweeper in that position.
It's like an old school throw-in where all the players are gathered in the middle of the pitch. And look, back then, when you come back then to the extra time, you know, Shane Morey is back in that position again where he's sitting in front of the square, you know, sweeping over and back the role that we'll say the likes of Pat Dunn played so well there last year. But look, it was, you'd say what a saga these 2 teams have pulled out of each other in the last couple of matches, and it was just what an atmosphere.
And sadly for Clare fans, don't Log, we're not going to see them again.
Yeah, but
you missed them in the championship.
Like, it's fantastic to see Wexford, and it's fantastic to see new players, and they're playing a definite pattern, a definite style, and it's great to see. But I think, not alone for Clare fans, I think all hurling people will be sad that we won't see these great Clare players for maybe another 10 months of their hurling lives.
Colin Ryan, real clever, one of the most underrated players of that Clare team. You know, another day he might get away with that, a lovely little pop pass, and this then is the goal for Derek Conan. Colin Galvin waits, holds up the pass, and then waits for the run, and you see it perfectly from behind the goals here.
Yeah, you teach your midfielders or half forwards, lift your head and see where the inside man is running to, and that was a top class bit of play. But right throughout the last 24 months, we've seen this type of stuff with Clare. They've brought a different dimension to the game. Patrick Kelly here, sending it on to one of the top players, Colin Galvin. And speaking of